Most men don't wake up one day and realize they're being used. It happens quietly, gradually. At first, it feels like you're just being dependable, easy to work with, understanding. You show up when people need you. You give time, energy, access, patience. And because nothing blows up immediately, you assume everything is fine. But over time, something shifts. The effort stops being mutual. The respect feels thinner. You start noticing that people take more than they give. And somehow, you're always the one expected to adjust. What makes this dangerous is that being used doesn't look like weakness on the surface. It looks like being the good guy, the reliable one, the man who doesn't make things difficult. And because you don't want conflict, you tell yourself it's not worth addressing. You let small things slide, then bigger things, until one day you realize you're exhausted, resentful, and quietly angry. Not just at them, but at yourself for allowing it to continue. This video isn't about blaming people for taking advantage of you. Most people don't sit around plotting how to exploit you. They respond to what you tolerate. They adapt to the standards you enforce, or don't. And if you've trained the world that access to you comes without boundaries, effort, or consequence, it will use you exactly as much as you allow. Not out of cruelty, but out of conditioning. Today, we're going to break down why this pattern keeps repeating. Not surface-level advice, not just say no nonsense, but the deeper reasons men allow themselves to be overextended, undervalued, and quietly disrespected, and why avoiding tension feels safer than enforcing standards. Because once you see the structure behind this dynamic, you stop internalizing it as a personal flaw, and more importantly, you learn how to change it without becoming cold, aggressive, or reactive. If you've ever felt like people only notice you when they need something, stay with me. This isn't about becoming selfish. It's about becoming solid, the kind of man who can't be used, because access to him actually means something. Most men who get used don't lack value. They give it away too freely. You make yourself easy to access, quick to respond, flexible with your time, and endlessly accommodating, believing that consistency will earn respect. But respect doesn't come from availability. It comes from boundaries. And when you remove friction from access to you, people stop valuing what they don't have to work for. Accessibility feels virtuous because it looks like reliability. You answer the call, you show up last minute, you adjust your plans, you smooth things over. On the surface, this looks like strength and maturity, but underneath, it communicates something else entirely. That your time, energy, and presence are negotiable. And once people sense that, they unconsciously start taking more. Not because they're malicious, but because you've taught them there's no cost. The mistake isn't generosity, it's generosity without standards. You give without observing whether the effort is mutual. You keep offering access even when appreciation fades, and instead of pulling back when the dynamic becomes one-sided, you double down, hoping consistency will correct imbalance. It doesn't. It reinforces it. People don't suddenly wake up grateful when access is unlimited. They normalize it. This is where men get stuck. You don't want to be that guy who becomes distant or difficult. You fear that creating distance means losing connection. So you keep things open, forgiving, smooth. But in doing so, you remove the very tension that creates respect. Because respect requires the possibility of loss. If nothing changes when people overstep, they have no reason to stop. The truth is simple and uncomfortable. People value what has conditions. When access to you requires effort, alignment, and reciprocity, it signals self-respect. When it doesn't, it signals that you'll be there regardless of how you're treated. And no amount of being helpful, patient, or understanding will replace that signal. Until you stop mistaking accessibility for respect, you'll keep wondering why people feel so comfortable using you, and why changing that dynamic feels harder than it should. The second reason people use you is simpler and harder to admit. You avoid tension. Not because you're weak, but because you've learned to associate tension with loss. Conflict feels risky. It threatens connection, approval, stability. So instead of addressing issues early, you absorb them. You let things slide. You tell yourself it's not worth the friction. And in the moment, that feels like maturity. In reality, it's self-abandonment. Peace without boundaries isn't peace. It's suppression. Every time you swallow a boundary, you send a message that your discomfort is less important than keeping things smooth. People don't hear your internal frustration. They only see your behavior. And your behavior says, "This is acceptable." Over time, that becomes the new baseline. What once would have felt disrespectful becomes normal, and pushing back later suddenly feels out of character. Not because you're wrong, but because you trained them to expect silence. Men who avoid tension often pride themselves on being emotionally controlled, calm, unreactive. But there's a difference between control and avoidance. Control is choosing when to speak. Avoidance is never speaking at all. When you consistently choose comfort over clarity, resentment builds quietly. And resentment doesn't make you stronger. It makes you colder, passive, and eventually explosive. Here's the part most men miss. Tension is not the enemy of respect. It's the cost of it. Respect is born when people know there's a line they can't cross without consequence. That doesn't require aggression. It requires clarity, a calm number, a withdrawal of access, a refusal to overextend. These moments may feel uncomfortable, but they recalibrate the dynamic instantly. Without them, people have no feedback loop to adjust their behavior. If you want people to stop using you, you don't need to become harsh or dominant. You need to stop prioritizing peace over self-respect. Because the moment you choose internal peace at the expense of external clarity, you teach people that your boundaries are optional. And once boundaries are optional, so is respect. If you're seeing yourself in this, don't turn it into self-criticism. This pattern isn't about being weak or naive. It's about what you've been rewarding and what you've been avoiding. You didn't let people use you because you lacked strength. You let it happen because you valued harmony over leverage, access over standards, and comfort over clarity. And once you see that, the pattern stops being mysterious. The shift isn't dramatic. You don't need speeches, ultimatums, or confrontations. You change the dynamic by changing what you tolerate, what you reinforce, and what you remove access to. Respect recalibrates the moment people realize your time, energy, and presence aren't unconditional anymore. If this hit home, take a second to like the video, comment with what stood out, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who's been giving too much for too little. Awareness is the first step, but action is what ends the pattern for good.